Do not disturb. I manage a members-only lounge behind a dry cleaner, the kind of place that pretends it doesn't exist and then dares you to prove it wrong. By day, people drop off shirts and sigh into the bell at the counter. By night, they come back with the password and a hunger for dim lights that understand them. I keep the books, the keys, the whispered requests for champagne that doesn't brag. I know what it looks like when desire wants to be a secret and when it's begging to be seen. The door is an old freezer door from a butcher's that closed before I was born. It's too heavy for the room that holds it, which keeps people honest. You need both hands to pull it open. You can't stumble in by accident. On a Wednesday that arrived quiet as a cat, the password was cicada. I collected it from 6 mouths before midnight and still had space for a seventh when a woman I didn't recognize stopped at the lint gray counter up front and toyed with a jar of safety pins like she was trying to decipher them. Hair tucked under a silk scarf the color of old paperbacks. Coat cinched with a belt that looked like it had opinions. No dry cleaning in her arms. "I think I left something here," she said, eyes on the safety pins. "What was it?" I asked. "A piece of courage," she said, so gently I almost didn't hear it. She looked at me then, and even in the fluorescent honesty of the front room I could see her face was built for softer light. "Can I leave a note instead?" She slid a square envelope across the counter. No name, no address, just a small ink drawing in the corner, two moths circling the same candle, neither getting warmer. On impulse, I turned the envelope over. A single word on the flap: marrow. "Password?" I asked, because rules are a kind of spine. She smiled without showing her teeth. "Cicada," she said. Inside the lounge, the music sighed approval and made room. I took the envelope to the office and stared at it until it stared back. I don't open other people's mail. I'm a professional secret keeper. That's what a good concealed door does. But the drawing of the moths made my fingers curl. The word marrow felt like something from the inside of a conversation nobody was supposed to hear. At 10, my bartender Richie knocked on the door with his elbow. "Guy at table 4 complains the candles are scented like regret," he said. "Also, a woman at the bar says she knows you." The woman at the bar did know me, intimately, in the way you know the rhythm of someone's footsteps down the hall. Jenna, my wife, wore a dress I'd never seen, a dark slip that turned the air into something it had to earn. She laughed at something a man beside her said, the laugh she reserves for when she'd like the world to believe it is not complicated. The man had photographer's wrists and the kind of watch you buy when you want strangers to guess your job. I moved like a ghost to the other side of the bar and stood in the thin slice of shadow where I could see but not be a sign. Jenna didn't look around. The man brushed a strand of hair from her cheek and her smile didn't falter, not even for the split second when kindness and possession can trade masks. I felt the envelope in my pocket like a foreign coin. Marrow. I watched my wife accept a second glass of something expensive and place her fingers around its stem with a familiarity that made my throat sting. We had not been happy, let me be honest like the door, but we had been trying, or pretending to. I'm not sure which is kinder. When the man leaned close to say something, Jenna's hand went to his wrist like muscle memory, and the world made a hard, clean sound inside me. I put my palms on the bar top and felt the lacquer cool my skin. I didn't make a scene, not because I'm noble, but because I know the geometry of rooms and what they can bear. The evening pushed forward as if nothing had cracked. Jenna and the man rose and drifted toward the back hallway where the lounge keeps its private alcoves with velvet curtains and a strict ban on lies. I watched them vanish, and in the hole they left, the woman with the safety pins, voice, appeared beside me like a subtitle in the wrong language. I thought you should know there's a way to do this without setting each other on fire, she said. I turned. Up close, her scarf had a faded pattern of foxes that only revealed themselves if you stared. Her eyes were the kind gray becomes when it wants to be read as blue. "Who are you?" I asked, and the sentence sounded like it had been chewed on before. "Someone who hates the smell of secrets left out too long," she said. "I'm Mara." "Mara," I repeated, because names make the ground solid. "I'm Aaron." She nodded toward the heavy door that led to the alcoves. "Mine is in there too," she said. "Call him Evan. It's not the one on his passport, but it's the one he gives to bars." "You left me an envelope," I said, and saw the small relief that crossed her face when I didn't pretend ignorance. "I didn't know if you'd open it," she said. "I didn't even know you'd find it. But I knew where they liked to play, and I gambled you knew how to hold a card without shaking." I put the envelope between us on the bar. "What's in it?" I asked. "Proof," she said, and the word didn't taste triumphant in her mouth. "Not the kind with skin, the kind with timing. Screenshots, room bookings, a photo of a do not disturb sign that thinks it's a crown." "I don't need it," I said, surprising myself. "I saw enough." "You say that now," Mara said. "But in the morning, doubt is a sculptor. It can make anything look like a misunderstanding." She touched the envelope with a fingertip, as if checking if it was alive. "Keep it, or burn it, or put it between two cookbooks and let it teach you how to breathe again. Just don't let them write our story while we're still in it." After Jenna and Evan left, separately, because even fools can do math, we went out into the front room where the dry cleaning slept on its hangers and the air had no opinions. Mara leaned against the counter. I was aware of the closeness of her, the clean spice of her perfume, the way her ribs lifted under her coat when she took a breath like she was lifting something heavier than air. "There's a place I go when I have to be inside and outside of a thing at the same time," she said. "A bookstore that used to be a church. The pews are gone, but the windows still want a choir." "I know it," I said. "Fox and Fable." "Of course you do," she said, smiling into the air. "Meet me there tomorrow at 3. No confrontations, no ultimatums, just two people who got drafted into a play without reading the script." I went. Of course I went. The windows in Fox and Fable do in fact demand a song, and the aisles are too narrow for the performative kindness of strangers. Mara sat on the floor in the travel section with her back against Iceland and her knees propped on Greece. She had a mug of something that steamed like a small train, and she looked like she had been designed to be left alone until she was. "We can't make a mess," Mara said before I'd fully sat. "I don't mean in public, I mean in ourselves. Do you understand?" "I do," I said. I did. I could feel exactly where panic wanted to live in the space behind my sternum, and I had already cleaned a shelf for it. "What did you have in mind?" "Clarity," she said, "and company, maybe a plan with the edges rounded." We spent 90 minutes deciding to be kind and then rehearsing what kindness might sound like. We would tell them separately. We would not exchange details we couldn't forget. We would not become detectives. We would not become weapons. We would not fill the silence with other kinds of noise. We would drink water and sleep and eat something with bread in it. We would let shock do its work without auditioning pain to be the lead. "Is this where we pinky swear?" I asked, trying to rearrange the weight of the room. "This is where we decide not to be cruel to ourselves," she said, and a laugh slipped out of me, uninvited and grateful. "Also where I confess that after arranging all this integrity, I desperately want to do one reckless thing." "What's the reckless thing?" I asked, though my body already knew. "I want to kiss someone who won't lie about it," she said, and her face did not blush. It opened. "Not to replace anything, not to revenge anything, to remind my mouth it's still mine. I could have said no. I could have said this is complicated or we should wait. I could have recited a sermon about the dignity of pain and the usefulness of restraint. Instead, I took the handle of her mug and placed it carefully on the floor beside the book about train routes through old Europe. Then I leaned in, and so did she, and the kiss was soft enough to be a secret and honest enough not to need one. There was no hurry in it, no clatter, just a shared decision to be warm. When we parted, our foreheads stayed close. She laughed again, but this time it sounded like a window opening. "Thank you," she whispered. "For what?" "For not narrating it," she said. I told Jenna that evening. We sat on the sofa that never stopped pretending to be comfortable, and I put the envelope on the table between us without touching it. I said what I'd seen. I said I wasn't asking questions with only one answer. I said we could be brave in the ways that mattered. She tried to deny, then to minimize, then to pivot. She cried, but the tears felt like a performance for an audience I didn't want to be anymore. When the words cooled, we did the inventory. The lease, the dog-eared cookbooks, the winter quilt with the stubborn corner that never lay flat. There was no throwing of rings. I slept on the couch, and in the morning the envelope was gone, and in its place was a scrap of paper that said simply, "I'm sorry," in the handwriting I had loved across a dozen grocery lists. Mara told Evan on their balcony, where their herbs refused to admit seasons. He shouted less than I'd expected and paced more than she'd hoped. She texted me afterward, "It's raining over the basil." She added a fox emoji that didn't make me sad. What happens after the truth is not cinematic. There are emails to landlords and to mothers. There is the dividing of mugs. There is the rediscovery of how inexplicably noisy a refrigerator is at 3 in the morning. People you love ask if you're sure, as if certainty were a switch you could flip. The body alternates between wanting to sprint and wanting to be a stone at the bottom of a clean river. The lounge kept its heartbeat. Passwords came and went. Velvet, Helix, Lighthouse. People performed their little rituals of secrecy and revelation, and I realized how much of my job was listening without judging the grammar of other people's hunger. I didn't tell anyone anything about mine. Mara and I met for walking and for coffee and for silence with purpose. We didn't make it a habit to stumble into excuses for touching. We didn't need to. Once, when the sky was 2 minutes from rain, we ducked into the dry cleaners and leaned in the narrow hallway behind the machines. Over our heads, a row of shirts ghosted by on the conveyor, all those sleeves reaching for things. I kissed her and she kissed me back, and the hum of the machines turned into a song that had been waiting years for our voices. We breathed into each other. We kept it human. We kept it ours. It would be neat to tell you that within a month we were an official noun with matching cups. It would be neater to tell you we ran off to a coast and opened a bakery with a view of boats that kept secrets better than people do. In reality, we took our time like a medicine that required patience to work. There are pieces of eroticism the internet turns into confetti. We didn't need them. We learned the choreography of each other's hands, the way a laugh can ride a collarbone, the temperature of a breath when it wonders if it's invited. We learned how to stop when stopping was the most honest thing. We learned to say yes without needing drums. The night Jenna came to pick up the last of her books, the rain decided to mean it. We stood in the doorway like two people about to choose different trains and made promises not to turn each other into villains in the versions of the story we told for company. When I closed the door, I leaned my forehead against it and let the would-be cool through my skin. I didn't call Mara. She didn't call me. We trusted the quiet we'd agreed on. Weeks later, the lounge played host to a private party for a publication that thinks adjectives are jewelry. Evan arrived with a publicist on his arm and a grin that had been polished in a mirror. He scanned the room in the manner of a man who lives where cameras are born. He saw me and arranged his face into something like civility. He did not see Mara. She had decided not to come, and that decision felt like a new kind of strength in my pocket. After midnight, when the staff were eating fries in the back hallway and taking turns confessing we wished for breakfast, I went into the front room to check the till. On the counter, where the safety pins still slept in their jar like loyal animals, someone had left a small glass charm the size of a lucky coin. When I held it to the light, it turned the ceiling into a slow rainbow. On the edge, etched so faintly you had to want to read it, was a single word. Marrow. I texted Mara, found a rainbow where the safety pins live. She wrote back, "Good. Hang it where people try to decide who they are." I hung it over the heavy door. On nights when the password is a little cruel, I catch people pausing under the charm and looking lighter when they walk through. What are we now? We are two people who survived a badly written play and decided to produce our own. She has a key to the front door that she uses when she wants to read a book on the couch in the office and steal the good chocolate I pretend not to buy. I have a toothbrush at her place that leans into the edge of her sink like it belongs there. Sometimes after closing, I spread a clean bar towel on the piano in the corner and play something slow while she lies back on the booth and closes her eyes. The room looks at us and decides to keep the secret, not because it's salacious, but because it's ours. There are nights, of course, when the ache knocks anyway, when the body remembers the habit of what it used to reach for and tries to reach again. On those nights, we walk the long block to the river and let the water tell us what it knows about persistence. We hold hands without crushing. We kiss without pretending the story didn't begin with a bruise. We go home and sleep with the windows cracked and the rain counting the right things. Sometimes a new guest comes in hot with adrenaline and guilt, shouting cicada like it's supposed to absolve them. And I think of all the doors we build for ourselves and the ones we tear down with our best intentions. I think of the moths circling the candle, and I choose not to get closer unless the heat belongs to me. Last week I replaced the password with something not even I saw coming. When people asked, I leaned on the counter and said, "Marrow." Some wrinkled their noses, some smiled without liking that they did. But the ones who needed it, the ones who wanted to be honest and brave and human, felt the word in their bones and walked through. On the freezer door's frame, right where your hand lands when you pull, that little glass charm throws its morning rainbow in a line so straight it looks like a promise. I stand beneath it with a clipboard I don't need and watch the people I will never really know come and go. Then I lock up and go find the person I do.